Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Welcome to the Catholic Mama, where you'll learn how to deepen and defend your faith, find comfort as we share the vocation of parenthood, and learn how to raise your children confidently Catholic. I'm your host, Christine Mooney-Flynn. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Catholic Mama. I'm your host, Christine Mooney-Flynn, and today I am joined by Catholic blogger Katie Bogner. Did I say that right?
You did. You got it.
Ooh, okay. So Katie has agreed to come on my show, which I'm so excited about. I followed her on Instagram for quite a while. I've been using some of the activities on her blog, looktohimandberadiant.com. So Katie, say hello, Katie. Tell us a little bit.
Hi. So nice to join you today.
So, Katie, we were just talking about this before I hit record, that I'm a convert, and I've talked to a lot of other converts, or most of my talks with Cradle Catholics, they're more interested in why I became Catholic, but I really want to talk to you about why you're still Catholic. So I don't know if you want to just give us a little brief rundown of yourself and your faith history.
Sure, absolutely. So I just want to say that as a Cradle Catholic, I always find convert stories so fascinating. So I think it's funny that we're coming at this from two different sides of the coin, and love that we can both meet in the middle and share our faith together.
That's awesome.
So I am a Cradle Catholic. So I was, baptized as an infant by my parents, who were both practicing the faith. My mom is a convert, actually. She converted very shortly before my parents' wedding, and without a lot of formation, actually, which I might mention a little bit later. So, but I was raised in the faith. I actually am still a parishioner at the church where my parents got married and baptized their kids, and grew up going to CCD. And, my family, we prayed before meals, and we didn't really miss Mass. But to be perfectly honest, that was a lot of it. I always identified as Catholic, and my faith was really important to me, but it wasn't really something that I really was very active in or really did a whole lot with until probably college is really when things started to change a little. And that was probably prompted by some service I was doing with a wonderful church that was doing some inner city ministry. And it wasn't a Catholic church, and that's obviously beautiful. And so I was working with a lot of people from different faiths. And that in and of itself really challenged me, because they knew what they believed in, and they knew who Jesus was, and they very firmly wanted to share him with others. And while I would have said all those things about myself, after watching their faith and the way they interacted with people, I knew that I wanted to know my own faith better. And so that experience with those beautiful people and ministering with them caused me to want to be able to answer some of the questions that I had, hanging in the back of my head, or questions that other people would ask me about being Catholic. And so that, early in college, I really started to read and to study and to pray more. And then I transferred to another college that had a really active Newman Center, where I encountered an awesome campus minister who's still a wonderful friend of mine, and focused missionaries, and all of a sudden I had these other young people who were on fire for their faith, and I just could not get enough of it. And so I started participating in retreats and Bible studies, and have just gone down the very slippery slope ever since then. And so now my faith is by far the biggest part of my life. It impacts everything else that I do.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Now, when I was going through the RCIA process last year, the sister who's in charge of it admitted that the Catholic Church is historically very good with the catechesis for children, but then as you get into young adulthood or past confirmation, it kind of wanes. So if you went through CCD, did you feel that way?
I did. Yeah. I went through CCD, kindergarten through 8th grade, and was confirmed. And then my parish had kind of a youth group. It's a very rural parish. It was very small, and it kind of, it was very weak and didn't last for very long, if that makes sense. As sometimes ministry does, it ebbs and flows. And so I happened to be coming of age in high school when there really wasn't a good targeted ministry towards young people. And then, like I said, college, though, I was able to go to a phenomenal Newman Center. That's been a priority in my diocese, to make sure that Newman Centers have good resources. And I definitely received the blessing of that formation. And then immediately after college, actually came back and moved back to my hometown, which I hadn't really exactly planned on, but happened. And then because I was so on fire, I asked my pastor at the time and said, hey, can I start a summer girls Bible study? There's all these high school girls who are about to go off to college and they've never experienced anything like that. So he said, yeah, absolutely. And I said, hey, Father, the youth group has kind of died out. Would you mind, can I start the youth group back up this fall? And he said, absolutely. And then he came and he said, so we really need a DRE, a Director of Religious Education, to run the CCD program. I said, would you consider doing it? And I said, absolutely not. Because I had said, I was also a first-year teacher teaching in the local public school. And so I had said yes to these other things and just thought that I was not qualified for that job and didn't have time for it, all the other things. But eventually he wore me down and I said yes. And I've been doing that job now for 11 years.
Oh, wow.
At the same parish. Yeah. So I do love that I got to dive back in to help minister in the very parish that formed me as a kid. And there's obviously there's been challenges with that, but there's a lot of beauty with it too. So that has been very interesting. And I hope that we as a church are recognizing some of the gaps, like you were mentioning about different places in formation that was lacking. Like one of the first things I did was I started an adult Bible study that the parents could attend while their kids were at CCD, for example. Just trying to give them that opportunity that maybe they had missed as they were growing up to enliven their faith and bring it into their homes.
That's a really interesting. Okay, that's really interesting. My husband is currently teaching the prep courses, which I guess, I don't know, it sounds like CCD, but I'm actually not sure since I don't know all the lingo of everything.
It's a lot of acronyms for kind of the same thing.
Yeah. It's Sunday school. It's for kids, I think, who are going to be confirmed in the spring.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So, but that's really interesting. Right now he's teaching a 10 a.m. once or 9 a.m. And then I just meet up with him afterwards and we go to mass together and the kids are there and the parents are supposed to join them. But that's interesting. I wonder what the parents are doing when the kids are in this Sunday school. That would be a really interesting.
That is a good question. Yeah.
We do have, our parish in particular has a pretty good, robust adult faith formation, but I always get better because I don't know what the parents are doing. And I know that they said for a lot of these kids, they're in public school all day. So this is the only real hour of religion that they're getting.
Yeah, I know. And isn't that crazy to think about that 1 hour out of the 24 hours of the day and 7 days of the week? It's just a drop in the bucket, which is why it's been so important to me to offer other things to our families, because parents are the primary educators of their kids. I mean, that's what the catechism says, and we all know it's true. So to offer opportunities for them to feel equipped to share their faith with their kids is going to have a hugely, a vast impact that is much greater than anything we could do in any CCD Sunday school classroom, for sure.
I got to say, this kind of dovetails a little bit into your blog. Again, look to him at beradiant.com, because I was just using the All Saints Day activities and booklet, the little booklet that you had on your site, and I learned so much from it. Again, I'm pretty new. I've only been, and I was actually just thinking about this a year ago. Probably this week was the first time that I willingly went to church as an adult.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that is amazing and so beautiful.
Thank you. It's really been quite a whirlwind of a year, and it would have been a year ago this week-ish that I told my husband there's no way I'm ever going to be Catholic. So
don't ever make bets like that with the Holy Spirit, because you always lose.
Oh yes, I am sure that he was laughing pretty hysterically when he heard me say that. With your blog, so I was saying, with your blog, I learned stuff from what you're trying to, this is all for the kids, these resources, but then I learned a lot.
Funny thing is that I'm learning just as much as I'm making the resources. So they're really for anybody under the premise of educating kids, because I think we feel comfortable with that, right? It's fun to go and look up an activity to do for All Saints Day with our kiddos. But along the way, we're learning for sure.
Absolutely. Every Friday I do these little 5-8 minute episodes on the catechism.
Yeah.
And I've read the catechism, but then to go back through again, it's really making these things sink in even more, which is really interesting. So I'm learning just along with everybody else.
Absolutely.
So, okay, you got yourself eyeball deep in everything Catholic right after college. When did you start your blog?
It was pretty shortly after that, a couple years. I think I've been blogging for 8 or 9 years. So pretty close after I started that DRE job. And that actually is kind of what led to it. That was kind of the era of everybody starting a blog and, like, I didn't know what I was going to blog about. I had some friends and family members who did, and it was kind of fun for a little bit. And then I started doing within my local group of churches, it's called like a vicariate. The DREs would get together once a month and have breakfast and talk about what we were doing in our churches and share resources. It was lovely, a beautiful way. Like, I don't think I could have made it through those first few years without all of those lovely people. And then we also had an annual kind of back to school sort of retreat for the volunteer teachers, and tried to give them some kind of a spiritual shot in the arm, have someone come and speak to them. But we also wanted to give them something practical, something that they could walk away from and implement in their classrooms. And somehow or another, I was talking about this program I had done at my church, and the other DREs asked me to talk about it. And I had never done anything like that. I'm actually quite introverted and not super comfortable in front of crowds. And so it's kind of crazy I said yes to it. But when I did, of course, all the people wanted to use the handouts that I had, which I was happy to share. So silly me at that time, Google was not quite so big. And so I literally emailed every person who was at that thing who wanted to have one of the printables I had brought. And it was crazy and took forever. So at some point quickly thereafter, I'm like, well, if I use this blog thing I have, and I put these ideas and documents and pictures up there, then I can just refer people to that. Like, even if they're the only ones who see it, that's fine. And so it quickly went from that to what it is today, which is, 8 some years worth of resources about teaching the faith to kids of varying ages, all the way up to adults with Bible studies and such. And it's gotten quite big, and I've traveled to different places around the country to share about it. And most importantly, it really has made me a better teacher. I'm also a Catholic school teacher, as well as a DRE. And I guarantee that my classroom would not be what it is without that kind of challenge of being able to share it with other people. It has caused me to maybe polish up my work a little bit more, made me do better research, made me think outside of the box for different groups of kids. So really, it's been the greatest gift to me and to my students, but I'm so happy to be able to share it with other teachers, other parents, other catechists out there in the world as well.
Yeah, I got to say, I really appreciate all the hard work you've done, because when I was looking around, I didn't even dawn on me, I just learned about All Saints Day this year. And when I was looking, I was like, oh, I guess, because I just started homeschooling our kids, because my son is young, but he missed the kindergarten cutoff by a week. But he's ready for it. And I didn't realize that I wanted to send him to a Catholic preschool. They laughed, kind of chuckled at me when I asked if there was a waiting list, and it was well, I guess, I got to do something with them. So we started doing all this stuff. I was like, oh, I need to pull in our faith and all of this. How do I do that? And thankfully I stumbled across your blog, which has been so helpful.
Well, I'm so happy you did. That's exactly what it's for.
That's awesome. So, you said, has it always been fun? Because I remember you said it for the first couple of years, it was fun. Has it gotten harder to do this stuff, or what keeps you going in blogging? Because I know blogging sounds like a lot of fun, and it sounds easy at the beginning, and you're full of ideas and whatever, but it can wane.
That is exactly true. At the beginning, it's kind of fun because there's no pressure. And to be perfectly honest, for a long time, and sometimes even still, I would put together these posts and would just kind of like to pretend and, hit publish, send them out into the World Wide Web, and kind of like to pretend that the only people who were going to see them were either complete strangers or maybe a few people who loved me a whole lot, like, my mom. It's the in-between people. It's still kind of strange for me to have people come up to me and introduce themselves and tell them that, oh, I saw this on your blog, or sometimes even more nerve-wracking yet, talk about what a difference it's made in their class, because that is totally the work of the Holy Spirit. It's not anything that I ever planned on or ever sit down to do. But like I kind of mentioned before, I just figure if I'm making this stuff for my own classroom and it could benefit other kids, there's no reason for it to sit in a computer file or on my desk when it could help someone else. I really do like creating things. That's just kind of the way my mind works, and coming up with new ways to present the beautiful truths of our faith in an attainable way, both for kids and teachers. And so I'm so happy to do it. But there definitely are challenges. Life is busy, and it does take time for sure. And so there's been times when it's really easy to get stuff together to publish, and there's times when it's a stretch. But I've got to admit that all of the awesome readers that send me emails or comment on things or contact me in other ways and talk about how, a certain project impacted their classroom or their child, or how that's not their gift, the creativity of pulling things together, and how it's just been such a blessing to them and their teaching as well as their family. And so that certainly helps keep me going.
You said you were a public school teacher at first, right?
Mm-hmm, I was.
Okay. How long have you been now in a Catholic school?
So this is my 7th year in Catholic school, and I taught 3 in public schools.
Okay. With the Catholic school students that are coming through, what ages are you teaching?
Right now I have junior high, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
Okay. Are they excited about their faith?
Oh, goodness. I'm going to say yes in general, but of course they don't want you to know that most of the time. Yeah, I mean, I am at a phenomenal school. Like, I cannot say more good about it. But they're still junior high kids, right? They still have huge questions about the world, and they want to push the boundaries as best they can. And in that case, with me anyway, it's asking hard questions about the faith, whether it's to test me or to test God or to test what the Catholic Church teaches. So they definitely are questioning and asking things, and they don't want to appear like they're just comfortable in their faith. But when it comes down to it, like, some of the things that they've asked and said just blow me away. Like, the things that they have gone through that they then bring to their faith, or the deep resounding prayer that they have that I never had at their age by any means, or the deep understanding they have of who God is and how he loves them. Like, there's a lot of big things going on in their lives for sure.
So when they're asking these good questions, are they getting good answers too? Do you feel like, even not just from you, but just from their entire faith community, are people willing to answer these hard questions, do you think?
I hope so. I really do. I mean, some of them, I know they're talking to their parents, because then their parents are coming to me and saying, I don't even know how to answer this. And that's one of the beautiful things about the Catholic Church, is no matter where you are in your faith walk, and that's what actually was kind of the resounding thing when I decided to choose to continue to be Catholic, when I started questioning things in college, was the fact that no matter what your question is, no matter how tough or how simple, the Catholic Church has an answer, and you can find that answer. It's not like a secret. It's not this crazy thing that only the most learned know. So I always encourage parents, like, you can totally say to your kid, that is an amazing question. Isn't that wonderful to think about? I'm going to do a little research about that, and I'm going to get back to you with an answer, which really you're just killing time while acknowledging the dignity of their request. But that's so great, is you can find the answer and you can bring it back. And if you're not prepared for that conversation in that moment, you can give them the dignity of a response, and then set a time, say, hey, let's talk about that tomorrow night after dinner. Okay. And so you can find there's no lack of resources when it comes to whether it's the catechism and scripture, or whether it's an awesome YouTube video, or whether it's a solid, a writer who's online that you can find an article that helps you understand things. But in some cases, I know that not all parents are comfortable doing that, or that's not where they are in their faith walk. So I'm always reassured that because kids have technology at their fingertips, it could be for worse, unfortunately, but it also can be for good. So I hope that if they're not getting the answers that they're looking for, that they hopefully can find them. Whether, like I said, all those resources that you and I have at our fingertips, so do they.
Yes. And what's really nice too is that when they're looking, whoever's looking for answers within the Catholic Church, it's consistent across. It's not, one church here thinks one thing, one church down the street is saying a completely other thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Consistent, which just helps. I just remember any church that I've gone to over the years, it would be very different teachings or whatever. And you don't know when you're supposed to sit or stand, or if they're going to do communion, or are they going to do the Lord's Prayer. It makes it so confusing, and you can't focus on the actual, to me at least, I couldn't focus on the actual worshiping part, because I was so confused about what was going on. I would imagine that if you're trying to find these answers outside of the Catholic Church, I think it would be very difficult to find
I agree.
Now, I noticed you like Fulton Sheen, because he shows up on your website, right?
I do love Fulton Sheen. And
what a wonderful, speaking of, being able to defend your faith, what a great man to have as kind of, I don't know, he's a friend.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. What gravitated you towards Fulton Sheen?
Oh goodness. How much time do you have? I'm just kidding. I'll try to give a short answer. Okay, so the really quick short answer would be, first of all, that he was born right here in my diocese. So he grew up about a half an hour from where my school is right now, for example. And then as a child, he moved into Peoria, which is the center of my diocese and where my school is. I teach in Peoria, Illinois. And so he grew up there and was an altar server in our cathedral and then went to school there. And then he actually was ordained a priest right here in our diocese and had his first parish assignment here in Peoria. So just from that local perspective, had this huge connection. Before I was really even aware of that so much, his book, The World's First Love, which is about Mary, was actually the book that helped me first really, truly understand the role that Mary had in our church, that she wasn't just a pretty statue that, and people prayed the rosary and that kind of thing. Like, he helped me truly understand who she was and why, if she mattered so much to Jesus, she certainly should matter to us, and how that's her job is to love us and lead us to her son. So that was a huge impact on me. And that was 15 years ago, probably, that I read that book. And then more personally, I know this is a whole, like I said, this is a whole other podcast, but Fulton Sheen is on his way to hopefully being one day named a saint in the Catholic Church. And part of the canonization process, as a way of finding evidence to show that a person is in heaven, is the church looks for miracles, right, to like attribute to them. And so the current miracle that is still alleged, it hasn't been proven because of some different outside circumstances, is about a little baby that was born and there was a true knot in his umbilical cord. And so when he was born, he had no heartbeat and did not breathe. And there was a lot of work that was done on him, and he actually did not have a pulse for 61 minutes, not 61 seconds. I have people correct me when I tell them that. So 61 minutes. His family, if you go back in the story, they had decided to name their child after Fulton Sheen and had been asking for his intercession and continued to do so during that terrible hour. And at the hospital, when the doctors were ready to call time of death and stop working on him, his heart spontaneously started beating and went up to a normal heart rate for an infant. And then there's a lot more to the story, but long story short, he's in second grade and is now preparing for his first communion and is totally fine.
Wow.
Yeah. So that story. So like I said, his family named him his name is James Fulton. You can Google James Fulton and the miracle, and you'll get to read all kinds of stories from his mom's perspective. His mom is also a Catholic blogger. Her name is Bonnie Engstrom, and her blog is anoddedlife.com. And they,
I had no idea that was the backstory.
Yeah. And that's, so kind of a tie-in with her blog name and everything too. And they just so happen to be very good personal friends of mine. So I was actually there with their family the night that James was born. So to walk through that experience with them and to pray for him in the midst of all of that great suffering and great unknown, and then to watch literally him turn into, just this amazing, adorable kid who, loves hot dogs and jumping on the trampoline and picks on his brothers and sisters and, is just this normal kid, is so beautiful. So when that happened, my excitement about Fulton Sheen grew, but then even more than that, I was teaching at a Catholic school, and I really wanted my students to know about it, right? Like, this amazing thing happened, literally in their backyards, and is probably, God willing, going to be part of the cause for his canonization. And I wanted them to know. So I ended up creating a whole curriculum, kind of took what I needed to teach as, at that time, a fifth grade teacher, what I needed to teach about the faith, and just taught it through Fulton Sheen's eyes, because that was what he did best, right? His television show and his 66 books and, everything he did was about sharing the faith with people in a way they could understand. So I took the things that I needed to teach as a fifth grade teacher and just tried to do it through the lens of his life. So whether it was studying who he was and what he stood for and what he believed, and then especially hitting on the sacraments and the gift they were to his priesthood, and that he could share them with people. And then as well as our universal call to holiness, that Fulton Sheen was just this farm kid who grew up in El Paso, Illinois. And so who's to say that, you or I or this kid in my classroom couldn't grow up to be a saint as well, since that's all the call that all of us have, is to be in heaven with God. So that's the really fast version of the story, but there's so much more.
Fast and fascinating. That's awesome. Yeah. Wow. Well, I guess I love Fulton Sheen. Even just watching him, his old video clips of his TV show, he's so regal. You just kind of be drawn into him.
I know. And his
everything he said is perfectly applicable today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's why another reason. So personally, for me to be a teacher, he taught in college classrooms and then obviously had his television show. So just to listen to him and the way that he spoke to people, and then also to hear more personal stories about his encounters with individuals, it really challenges me as a teacher to like dignify my students by giving them a quality education in my classroom, like not to discount my presence there, if that makes sense. And also to like treat them as individuals and give them the truth that they need. So personally, that he also matters to me a lot as a teacher for that reason as well.
You're making me want to go back to middle school. Like go and sit in your classroom. I don't think I ever would have said that. Middle school's tough, man.
It is.
It sounds like the kids are lucky to have you as a teacher.
Oh, thank you. I'm blessed to have them.
Are there any other saints that come to mind that you really look to or like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so hard to pick. It's like crazy to narrow down such great heavenly witnesses. I really love St. Maximilian Kolbe. He was the patron saint of my last classroom for quite a long time, and just his story of witness. And sometimes with the saints, I think we get caught up in the way they died, which still certainly matters. But he is a wonderful example of the work that he did in his life, and how every step along the way is what led to the moment of his death and the way he died in Auschwitz concentration camp. So he's one that I really love reading about. I also can't help but love St. John Paul II. Like he just feels like my spiritual grandfather, kind of. Can't look at him without smiling and can't read his words without being inspired. Really love him. And then my confirmation saint is St. Catherine of Siena. And for a while, I kind of I hate to say this out loud, but I kind of regretted choosing her. I just picked her because, so my name is Catherine. And so my teacher at the time, my CCD teacher, recommended that if we had a tie with our baptismal name, we pick them. And that's great. But later on, I was like, I could have had anybody, and I just picked her. But now the longer I live and the more I read about her, I realize that she chose me. That's the way confirmation saints should really work. And I already mentioned once that I'm kind of an introvert, tend to be a little quieter, don't really like to rock the boat or, shake things up. And I feel like St. Catherine has kind of kicked me in the tail and helped me to have a voice and to speak up when I need to speak up and not be so scared of public speaking or standing up for what's right, things like that. So she's got my back and I didn't even know it. So she's another one who's a favorite for sure.
That's awesome. I was baptized at Easter Vigil this year. And there was a couple things. Anyway, I'm going back through RCIA again this year.
Awesome.
I actually really enjoying that. I get to go back through it because I missed the first couple months of it. I didn't realize I wanted to be Catholic until late January or February. So I really just kind of got in at the very last minute to be baptized at Easter Vigil, since Easter was early this year. But I have to, the confirmation name is something, and I think I know, but I don't yet. So. Oh,
that, if I had to pick today, Christine, I couldn't do it. I don't even know how I would begin to choose. So I'll be praying for the right saint to choose you. That's so
Thank you. Cause I've always loved St. Lucia, but I don't know enough. I gotta learn more.
You've got time. So
I got a couple more months. I got until Pentecost. So that's 6 months from now. So
okay.
But those 6 months go by fast because I had an email sitting in my inbox since May about something that I had to do by the deadline was November 22nd, and I just did it. So
don't you love deadlines? They push us to do the right thing. Yeah.
So I have a deadline, whatever the day, Pentecost 2019. I don't know. So I think we're kind of getting close on our time, but you had said earlier, you had alluded about kind of your growing up Catholic and your mom. Is there anything else that about your childhood as being a Catholic that that got you kind of less energized about as a teen, and then you I know you got back in after those college years? I guess what kind of made you not as excited, or maybe that's not the right word. I might be putting words in your mouth. In your teen years, and then were there any particular resources besides the Newman Center that really invigorated again?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, looking back at say my teenage years, there really wasn't anything in particular that a huge teaching that I question. I'm a pretty obedient person by nature. And so I know some people really struggle with a particular teaching of the church, and that kind of forces them to choose or make them want to walk away. I guess I just kind of got apathetic. I went to mass on Sunday. That wasn't really ever a question. But that was pretty much it. And so I've already mentioned, college really renewed me, and it was really the people there. I had just never seen other young people who were on fire for their faith. Trust me, I absolutely love my parish and the people who are there. And I think that it is such a gift that we get to celebrate the liturgy together with everyone from infants to the elderly. There's a great beauty and joy in that. But there's also something to be said for having someone you can identify with and someone you can grow alongside. And so I had never had, through high school and college, in my parish, there was never anyone close to my own age who was living out their faith. And so it was really the people that I met in college and that have remained friends all the way, until now, that made a huge impact. And the beautiful thing is that my family has walked alongside that with me as well. I can speak of the beautiful faith of my grandmother and how she, prayed the rosary. Even when she was too weak to stand on her own, that was, she was always praying. And my dad, he's a quiet farmer for the most part, but I know that he has consistently prayed for his family for, his entire life, and just has a really beautiful faith and is talking so much more about it. And I think that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, I guess, was the fact that my whole family, it's such a beautiful gift that we share our Catholic faith. And we, my parents and I are in Bible study together, and my brother-in-law just joined the church last Easter Vigil. So we have that connection of last year was a special Easter for both of us. And I have a niece and a couple of nephews now that are being raised in the faith. So it's my whole family is kind of walking together in that now. And so not that I need to have, a peer group like I did in college anymore, but it's just really awesome to be able to, be sending a funny Catholic meme to my brothers-in-law and talking about a great book I read with my mom, and then chatting with my dad about what passage in scripture he's reading right now. That's a gift that I don't take for granted. And sometimes I catch myself at how beautiful it is to be able to be sharing that with my family, even though, we live in different states now and are in very different places in life, but we all have that in common, and we always will.
Man, that's awesome, because with my in-law or my husband's family and my family, everybody's Catholic, but very nominally, or they have left the church. And so my husband Pat and I are trying, I guess, to be as outwardly excited and verbose about our new faith, and hoping that we're going to reinvigorate our family, because that is a dream that we would be able to do that with our own parents or siblings.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, trust me, it is a gift, a complete gift that I do not take lightly. It is the thing that I cherish the most in my life. And so I totally also empathize with you, though, because I know that it's a rarity, and I know the pain of good friends that I have, that they might be the only practicing faithful person of any faith in their family, and how difficult that can be. So definitely something to be praying for. And I think that you and your husband are going about it in exactly the right way. Your enthusiasm and your love for God and your vigor for the church, that's what's going to inspire other people to come alongside you.
Let's hope. In the meantime, we'll just raise our kids to be Catholic and hope that they stay, and then we'll have to just create that.
Absolutely.
That's why it's so important for the parents to be teaching their kids the domestic church.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And here we've come full circle with what we talked about at the beginning.
Look at that. Well, I think maybe that is our ending point, I suppose. Is there any last thoughts?
No, but it has been a joy to join you and your listeners. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Katie, you can find Katie at looktohimandberadiant.com. It's a great resource. I highly recommend any listener to go check her out. Katie, thank you so much for coming on. I just happened to follow you when I started doing Instagram a few months ago, and I was collecting Catholic bloggers that I could follow, and I've been so happy that I found you and then reached out and we could do this. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Don't forget to head over to thecatholicmama.com to get your free copy of How to Talk to Your Kids About God. This handy little ebook will teach you how to broach the topic of God with your children, or how to respond to your kids when they want to talk about God, as well as give you answers to 7 of the trickiest questions about the faith that Christian parents face. You'll love the easy-to-understand grown-up answers, the pared-down but not talked-down answers you can share with your kids, plus recommended resources if you'd like to deepen your understanding of the topic. Get yours free at thecatholicmama.com.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.